Yeah, boy.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Outward. Today, we're taking a look at the Virgin Warrior build. This is a creation of mine that originally was going to be a joke build, but actually turned out pretty okay. It's not OP or anything, but it does have some interesting perks that make it stand out. The main idea behind this playthrough is light. I wanted to be as bright as possible, and you probably already noticed, my gear is very illuminating. We're obviously going to make use of the Virgin Armor to fit our theme and get a nice glow. Unfortunately, the Virgin Armor set mostly sucks. It has some interesting enchantments that make it glow different colors, but it's very mediocre armor. That being said, there are 2 or 3 enchantments that do buff this set to be pretty darn good. One being Rascal's Verve, which we will make use of here. It essentially lets you block any attack in the game and not get knocked over. Well, all but 1 or 2 attacks that are actually impossible to block. But you can just stand there and block with a simple sword forever. Kind of a cool idea and might be nice in co-op, especially if your buddy needed to heal up or something. So here is the Virgin Warrior, and let me know what you think in the end. At the start of the game, you want to talk to Burak with a one-handed sword equipped. Even though our sword deals no physical damage, and this skill makes enemies weaker to that damage type, it's a main part of our build. Then you need all the boons and tier 1 skills from each skill tree. This is nothing crazy, as every build will make use of these in some fashion. Take 3 total points of mana at a ley line. This grants you 60 mana, and after your faction quest, you get up to 80. It's a good amount that doesn't dip into your mana or health too much, but still lets you use skills when needed. The equipment for this build is what makes it the Virgin Warrior. It's pretty unique and specific as well. For the armor, you want the full Virgin set. This can be bought from the blacksmith in Harmattan, and I don't recommend you get it until you enchant it. Because without enchants, it's simply a bad armor set. All 3 pieces will need to be enchanted with Rascal's Verve. This is an enchantment that buffs your armor's impact resistance significantly, while also granting you more impact damage. To put things simply, you can't be knocked down, and your enemies get knocked down faster. It also grants you a bit more protection on each piece, which makes you pretty well off against physical attacks. You will need what I guess is called the Selfina incense to get this process done, and this requires an ether particle. You can find these on ethereal elementals or go for several guaranteed drops. Ancestral General, the undead mini-boss in the Necropolis under Blue Chamber in Berg. Arcane Elemental, Clock Tower puzzle variant. Or Grandmother Mediz, who can be found in Sulfuric Caverns in Caldera. This one isn't too bad to make, considering there are several ways to get the required particles. I originally wanted a white glow on the armor, but unfortunately I didn't like many of the enchantments other than Rascal's Verve, and the purple's bright enough to suit our purposes. Next, you need the weapons and backpack. We will use the Glowstone Backpack, which requires completing the Purifier quest, so make sure to get that done. I'll link a video down below on where to get it, and it's a backpack that lights up. Pretty fun for a light bulb-like build such as this one. Then you need Zhorn's Hunting Dagger. I'll also link this one in the description on how to get it, but it glows and grants us some nice damage. You can enchant it with whatever you like, really. I didn't mess with weapon enchants for this video, so you can get a bit more power there if you'd like it. The Radiant Wolf Sword is the last item we need to complete our Bright Warrior, and you need to take the Holy Mission faction quest to get it. If I'm correct, you only miss out on some weather defense for it, so it's a pretty nice glow stick. This set of equipment makes us very bright and allows us to block forever. In order to have some decent stamina, you should probably grab a luxury tent as well. It's not necessarily required, and I didn't use it in this video, but tougher enemies will run you dry of that precious resource very quickly. Like I said a little bit ago, you need to take the Holy Mission faction quest for this build. Mainly for the Radiant Wolf Sword, but there are several other passive stats that you gain from this path, including a free lightning imbue that costs mana and the blessed boon to activate, plus 20 decay resistance, negative 10% stamina and mana cost, plus 2 protection, and possibly more defense from building New Sirocco. You miss out on the acceptance passive if you go for the sword, and I think that's it. All the other rewards seem to be tied to other parts of the Holy Mission faction quest. After this is said and done, you get a bit tankier, your stamina and mana will be more manageable, and you beat your faction quest, rewarding you with plus 20 health, stamina, and mana. So obviously we're messing around with some odd but fun stuff here. You never need a lantern and are the brightest knight that Outward has ever seen. So what skill trees will make this powerful enough to use on a regular basis? We already have loads of elemental damage for both our weapons, and stagger potential is off the charts. What we don't have is elemental defense and an easy way to heal. Here are the skill trees I recommend, as they fit pretty well into this character. Rune Sage is a must. You need to take all the skills except Runic Prefix. This is one of the few times you should get internalized lexicon, so that we don't ever need that lexicon. We won't be using the attacks from runes much, and will instead be using them as support. We gain green-blue, which is Runic Lantern, and blue-purple, which is Runic Protection. These aren't necessarily required, but if you want to be as bright as possible, the Lantern is very bright, and the Runic Protection adds a cool runic effect to our already shiny armor. Then we also have purple-blue, which is Runic Heal. I did not have these two runes equipped for a while when I played, and you really need to have them. It's a super fast and easy way to heal. Since the Rune Sage skill tree offers much more mana, we have enough to use whenever we want to heal, and mana potions are easy to craft in bulk as well. This skill tree is for more brightness, as well as a reliable way to take damage and heal in combat. Rogue Engineer is another must-have for this build. It's the obvious choice for two reasons. One being that we're using a dagger. All the dagger skills are really strong, dealing loads of damage and impact. Heck, the Serpent's Parry freezes enemies in place, which is just really great. So we need to take this skill tree for more attack power. We can also use Probe from the Speedster skill tree to inflict pain and confusion constantly. Then Opportunist Stab triples in damage. Puncture will come into play here as well, because it will deal a lot of damage and inflict pain. So we can constantly be using skills to deal all of our damage. The Feather Dodge breakthrough for this tree is great as well. The Glowstone Backpack hampers your dodge, and this perk removes that effect, letting you dodge freely. The passive also halves the amount of stamina it costs for you to dodge in the first place, which lets you get a bit more spammy without it deleting your stamina. All around, this skill tree grants us some more quality of life aspects and our main source of damage. Cabal Hermit will be our last skill tree. This build lacks elemental defense, and the buff to boons from this tree will be our crutch to fall back on. It also gives our two weapons more damage, which is never a bad thing. I also decided on this skill tree because of Wind Infuse. With our already high impact, the Wind Infuse will make our sword swings hit with the power of a two-handed mace. It's not necessary, and sometimes a Varnish is definitely going to be the better option. However, some bosses in Outward, such as the first Cannibal, don't really need you to output loads of damage. Simply putting them on the ground in 2 or 3 hits keeps you safer and still lets you decrease enemy health at a fast rate. And since we already have loads of lightning damage, you should use Wind Infuse for things weak to lightning. Gives you another option to choose from when confronting different enemy types. Using the Virgin Warrior is pretty simple really. You want to go into every fight as bright as possible and with as much impact as you can get. Start by activating these skills: Runic Protection, Runic Lantern, Wind Infuse, Blessed Boon, whatever boon correlates to your opponent's damage. If it's a fire enemy, use the Warm Boon, etc. Enrage Boon, and Discipline Boon. You're now ready to begin combat. Use Puncture as much as possible to deal massive damage and inflict pain. Activate Opportunist Stab for nice damage. Do this over and over while you block every attack the enemy throws at you. Use Probe and your other skills to get a bit more out of the combat and kill things faster. It's really that simple, just a good blocking build that doesn't even use a shield. You get fast and strong attacks from the Dagger with loads of elemental damage. The Virgin Warrior is an answer to the question no one asked. How do I become the sun itself? Light up every dark area you enter and show those haters that the world isn't so dark and dreary. This is a pretty unique take on a Dagger build that maybe shouldn't exist. But I don't really ask if something should be made. I just make it. Hopefully you enjoyed this build and maybe it gives you some ideas. I would highly recommend using the Rascal's Verve enchant as it's the best for impact resistance and blocking any melee attack. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.